There are years that pass without leaving a mark, years that feel like just another repetition. But there are others that, even before they end, leave a strange sensation, as if something were changing beneath the surface. You can't always explain it. There's no specific headline, no single defining event, but something feels different. And when that happens, history and the Bible teach us something important. Not every change arrives making noise. For centuries, humanity has tried to anticipate marked moments, dates, cycles, endings, and beginnings. In 2012, for example, millions believed the world was going to end. Ancient calendars were discussed, misunderstood prophecies, global collapse. None of that happened the way people expected. But here's the interesting part. Even though the world didn't end, many things did change afterward. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but the rhythm of the world, the way people live, the way we relate to one another, even spirituality itself, never returned to exactly what it was before. Because sometimes the mistake isn't thinking a year is important. The mistake is expecting destruction when what's coming is transition. The Bible never speaks of sudden endings without first speaking of processes. God doesn't act like an explosion. He acts like a tide. It rises slowly. It approaches without asking permission. And when it finally becomes noticeable, it had already been there for a long time. That's what happened before the flood. That's what happened before the exile. That's what happened before the birth of Jesus. And that's what makes this Christmas of 2025 different. Christmas is not just a celebration. At its core, it is a divine interruption. God entering human history, light breaking into darkness, the eternal touching the ordinary. And every time the Bible speaks of God drawing near, it also speaks of exposure. When God comes close, nothing remains neutral. Everything is revealed. Everything is shaken. Everything is defined. And this is where many people are not paying attention, because we have never lived through a Christmas in a world so saturated and so empty at the same time. Never have there been so many churches, so many messages, so many verses, so many videos, so many spiritual voices, and yet so little inner vigilance. The Bible warns about this. It speaks of times when people would have the appearance of godliness, but deny its power. It speaks of generations who would honor God with their lips, while their hearts would be far from Him. That is not a futuristic prophecy. It is a spiritual diagnosis. 2025 arrives after years of global crises, not only economic or political ones, identity crises, meaning crises, spiritual crises. People are not rejecting God with anger. They are setting Him aside with indifference. And biblically, indifference is more dangerous than open rebellion, because the rebel still fights, but the indifferent falls asleep. Jesus spoke about this often. He warned less about wars or catastrophes and more about distracted hearts, about comfortable lives, about people so busy celebrating, buying, and planning that they would not notice God passing right in front of them. That already happened once. Christ was born, and almost no one recognized Him, not because there were no signs, but because no one was looking in the right direction. This Christmas feels different because it arrives at a point of saturation, as if the world has tried everything and still remains empty. Technology, information, superficial spirituality, self-help, motivation, everything except silence, everything except surrender, everything except uncomfortable truth. And the Bible is clear. When truth is softened to avoid discomfort, it stops transforming. There is something that repeats throughout Scripture. Before major movements of God, there is widespread fatigue. People continue with their lives. They keep celebrating. They keep their routines. But inside, something no longer fits. That is exactly what many are feeling now. Not fear, not panic, but a quiet uneasiness. And no, this is not an apocalyptic prediction. It is not the end of the world. It is something deeper. It is the end of a way of living faith without commitment. The end of inherited spirituality that is not lived. The end of habit without conviction. That is what makes this Christmas marked. The Bible speaks of times of visitation, moments when God draws near in a special way. Not because He changes, but because the human heart reaches a limit. And when that limit is crossed, there are only two options: to awaken or to harden, never to remain the same. This Christmas does not ask whether you are a believer. It asks whether you are awake. It does not ask whether you celebrate. It asks whether you are watchful. It does not ask whether you know biblical stories. It asks whether your life is aligned with what you say you believe. That is why it feels different. In 2012, many people looked to the sky, waiting for external signs. Today, almost no one is looking inward. And maybe that is why this year is more dangerous and more full of opportunity at the same time. Because when God moves silently, only those who are attentive notice it. This Christmas can pass like any other. Lights, gifts, songs, routine. Or it can be the moment when something awakens inside you. A question that can no longer be ignored. A discomfort that can no longer be numbed. Because when truth is truly heard, you can no longer pretend you didn't hear it. Maybe this Christmas will not mark the end of anything visible, but it can mark the end of excuses, of postponement, of later, and the beginning of a living faith, aware, watchful. And now, before this video ends, let me ask you an honest question. Have you also noticed that something feels different this year? I'm not talking about theories. I'm talking about inner sensations, uneasiness, questions that weren't there before. If you felt it, leave it in the comments. If you haven't felt it, observe yourself. Because marked moments do not announce themselves with noise. They announce themselves with silence. And this Christmas, even if many don't notice it, is not just another one.